Pavitram charitam yasyah pavitram jivanam tatha pavitrata sarupanyai tasyai devi namo namaha. Pranams again and again to that great goddess whose life itself is purity, whose living way of purity, and who is the embodiment of purity, condensed purity. To that Devi, my pranams again and again. Abhedananda Maharaj, you all know, composed this prayer, which we do every day in all the Ramakrishna order, men's and women's centers. In his ecstatic mood, he was trying to visualize Holy Mother and felt that, what can I say, she is pure. Pavitram charitam yasyaha. Her story itself is pure. Whoever listens to that story with attention and devotion will be purified. Pavitram jivanam tatha. Study her life. The way she was doing things was so clean and neat and pure. We will be surprised. You just read them, and at least for a short time, we feel that we have become pure. Then Maharaj thought, why should I delineate all these things? Her qualities or her life, what can we know? Pavitrata Swarupani, she is condensed purity. Not made up of purity. She is condensed purity. To that condensation of purity, my humble pranams. This is what we get when we keep Holy Mother's name, life, doings in our heart. The purity that she is, the rays from that purity will permeate through and through our heart, the whole being. That is called satsanga. The contact with great souls, mentally or intellectually, spiritually or physically, will transform our lives. Vivifying rays from those personalities will enter into our being, and a silent transformation in course of time will take place. Some people get transformed immediately because they are already ready. Through lives of pure life, full of pure thoughts and pure way of looking at things. They are born ready for this transformation. And they look around for ways of touching that touchstone which will transform their life. And before death comes and silences them, they achieve their end. They reach the goal of their search. Company of the holy. Sometimes mere contact with them mentally can purify us. Read their lives and think about it. I don't say meditate. Think about it. But when we think about the life of any person, we live and relive in our heart. Remember that. We go through the episodes of those lives again and again in our minds. And in course of time, rays emanating from those lives will slowly make changes within our personality. You are what your thoughts are. Nothing more, nothing less. Beware of what thoughts you keep in your heart. It will affect your personality, your character. We keep the thoughts about these great personalities who have got transforming power in our hearts, and without any effort, any other effort on our part, we will get transformed. Just imagine the magic. Only human beings can do that, remember. We are so fortunate that we have been built up by God in that way. Once the animals, the wild creatures, animals and birds, had a big conference. In those days also there used to be conferences to decide upon solutions for universal problems. Big conference. The question that was discussed upon was that these human beings have got some power in them which can subdue us. We don't have any way of fighting with them. So what to do? A resolution was taken. They also had that. A resolution was taken that a delegation should go to God. So a delegation representing many types of birds, creeping things, animals, went to God's place. Oh, today I have got great visitors. What do you want? We need help. What kind of help do you need? These human beings are killing us. They have got so many weapons and we don't have anything. We don't know how to use weapons, and so they are destroying us. So give us some way of resisting their attack. Then, all right, the snake was given poison. Use that as your weapon, against which the human beings don't have anything. The tiger, claws and sharp teeth. The deer can run fast. The birds can fly up into the air. The fish can swim into the water. These things human beings are slow in doing. So he can escape. They all were very happy. Every animal was given some mechanism of defensive system. Human beings heard this, that these animals had been given some special blessings in the form of weapons to resist our attack. So they also had a world conference. They also passed the resolution, and they also sent a delegation to God. God was surprised to see human beings coming to him. What made you come here? It's a great day for me. Now we heard that you have granted special defensive systems to the animals, the animal world. Please give us something. We don't have anything to, we can't run, we can't swim and escape from them, we can't fly and escape from them, we don't have claws and things like that. Many other things which animals have or the other creatures have, we don't have. My dear children, you have been already endowed with all that you need. Remember, only man man has got a different way of makeup. The animals are horizontal. Their bodies are horizontal to the earth. We are the ones who are perpendicular to the earth. The generative system, the eliminating system, the feeling system, heart, and the thinking system, brain, are almost on the same level for the animals. Whereas we have all of them arranged beautifully. The generative system and the eliminating system below, the feeling system, heart, above that, and above that, nicely protected from little shocks and things. I have kept a beautiful thing there, your buddhi. Use that. You can escape from them. The definition for man is an intelligent animal. The man is an intelligent animal. We are still animals. The animality is in us. But we are intelligent animals. Intelligence we have got an extra. And it has been kept beautifully in a hard case, safe and sound, above everything else, to be the king of the whole system. Use that. It is that in coordination with the heart, feeling system, that gives us elevation in our personal progress. Don't allow yourself to be ruled by the feeling system, heart. You will become emotional. Don't allow yourself only to be ruled by the brain. You will be dry. A beautiful coordination between the two makes you the best specimen of human beings. Think, read, absorb, think and use. Only absorption is not enough. Make it yours. Somebody's knowledge is of no use to you. Think and think and think. Keep the intellect for some time on that and become one with it, or make it one with you. Then you are that. It's satsangam. It's easier to absorb great things. Simply being in the company of a great being cannot give you much benefit unless you use your heart and your brain along with that to absorb the radiation that emanates from that personality. Whether that personality is present or not, it is enough if the personality is kept in your heart. Think of that. Read about that. And you will find so much peace enveloping you, like a mantle. You feel good. You feel that you can face life, in a challenge in life. Like as Sri Ramakrishna says, let confusion come. When confusion comes, we are frightened. I am confused. Sri Ramakrishna says, let confusion come. I know how to face that. All kinds of difficulties, you can all come. I know how to face that. That daring feeling, that venturesome attitude will come, and life will be interesting. Life will be an adventure, as I say. Life will be an adventure. Always looking for more and more difficult situations, because we know we can face that with the help that we get from them. One day, Narada, in his roaming routine, went to see Vishnu. Now and then he used to visit him. Lord, I have got a question. What is that, Narada? You are all-knowing. What is disturbing you? No. I understand intellectually that holy company is good, but I haven't absorbed the essence of that saying. So what's the benefit of holy company? Vishnu sat quiet for some time and then said, look, on the earth, in that village, a worm has been born just now. Go and ask the worm. Oh, such an insult. To ask this big question to a newborn worm of all things in the world. But anyway, he was committed already. Vishnu is waiting for him to go and come and give the report. So Narada went there. The worm was coming, wriggling out of the egg. It was weak and tired, so its eyes closed, it was lying there. Because of the effort of breaking the egg and coming out. My dear little worm, I need your help. I asked a question to Vishnu, and the Lord asked me to approach you. The question is, what is the benefit of holy company? The worm looked at Narada's face and fell down dead. Immediately fell down dead. Narada was shocked. I didn't get a reply for my question. Rather, one look at me killed him. Slowly, he went back. Vishnu was waiting. Well, Narada, did you get the answer? No. What happened? It looked at me and then it fell down dead. All right. See, in that other village, a calf has been just born to the cow in that farm. Go and ask him or it. My goodness, what's going to happen? Anyway, it's a promotion from a worm to a calf at least. He was a bit happy. He went. The calf had just come out. You know, when the calf comes, those who have seen that, you know, when the calf comes out, it just falls on the ground and then it's a shock. So it lies down with eyes closed for an hour, it can't see, they say. Eyes closed, because of the shock, it lies there quietly. So Narada went there. My dear little calf, I need your help. Vishnu sent me here to get reply for a question of mine. What is the benefit of holy company? The calf opened its eyes, looked at Narada and fell down dead. Look at the consternation, the shock that Narada got. I have become a murderer of newborn babes. My goodness, how can I go back to Vishnu? Vishnu was waiting. He had to go. He went back, dragging his legs. Slowly he came. Well, Narada, tell me, what reply did you get? Nothing. One look at me killed that baby. Oh, that king in that country has got a prince, just newborn. Go and ask him. Promotion, that's all right, but then killing one thing after another in the species. But he had to go. When Narada came to the palace, the king was overwhelmed with joy. After long years of prayers and vigils and fasts and pilgrimages, he had got a son. Oh Narada, you came at a very propitious time. very auspicious day for me. Come, bless my boy. Bless my boy. I may be going to kill him, who knows? Narada said, all right, where is the baby? In a cot. Will you all leave the room for a few seconds, please, because he did not want them to see the baby dying, or in his language, killing him. So the king and the queen and everybody left the room. In the middle of the hall was the cot. Narada, frightened to his end, slowly approached him. My dear little prince, I need your help. Vishnu sent me here. Fortunately or unfortunately, I happened to ask him a question. And he is sending me to you. The question is, what is the benefit of holy company? The prince opened his eyes, looked at Narada and said, I am the best example. I was born as a worm. 1 second in your company enabled me to leave that body and be born in a better one in the form of a calf. As soon as I was born, I had the good fortune to have your company for a second, and that released me from the calf body, and I am born as a prince. And now, I don't have to live in this body, confined, imprisoned within this body. I am going to have mukti, moksham, because I got your company, at least for a few seconds. That's it. So that much of benefit we get by the company of the holy, if we are ready. If we are not ready, the company of the holy will not do us any visible good. So the whole onus lies on our shoulders. We have to live in such a way that every moment we prepare ourselves for the great benefit, for the great blessing. Many times, great people, really holy people, those who have got transforming power, cannot be recognized. We may come into their contact, but if we are not ready, we can't recognize that. Even in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna wanted to see the universal form of Sri Krishna. He had the good fortune to even to intellectually understand that Sri Krishna was God, absolute supreme person himself. Still he wanted to see, he wanted Sri Krishna to enable him to see his universal form, about which he heard a lot in chapter 10. Then what did Krishna say? Divyam dadami te chakshuhu. With these mortal eyes of yours, you can't see me. I will give you divine eyes. The person will look the same as he is now, but he get an inner awakening. Only if the inner awakening comes, he'll immediately grasp the truth of this world. Intellectually, Vedantically, we understand that God is residing in every human being, every living thing, everything in the every creature, created thing in the world. What do we see? The one resides in everything, Vedanta tells us. But we see many, because we don't have the Divyam Chakshuhu. Divya Chakshus we don't have, divine eyes. It's a special kind of understanding. Though not divine, but superhuman, sometimes we get. It's called inspiration. There's a gradation of understanding. Instinct, intuition, inspiration, realization. Every living creature has got instinct. It is the instinct that saves animals and birds and other creatures, lower creatures, from being a prey to dangers. Instinctively they feel things are not safe, good. We also have, but we have got something more, intuition. We can see into the future many times. We can look into the past and memorize things, remember things. Intuitively I knew. It's not through thinking. The brain does not come into a participation in that activity. Intuitively I understood. Instinctively means it just blooms up. Intuitively means it's mine. Instinct is common to everybody. Intuition is not. It's a special trait. When the thinking becomes sharp, one-pointed, concentrated, we rise up to the level of intuition. There we can see into the future. That's one big difference between human beings and animals. Animals cannot argue within themselves. Last year, at this time, there was a flood. So this time we have to be careful and be ready to migrate. This year also flood can come. They can't think like that. We can. From past experiences, we learn a lot. They learn a little, only enough for the survival, for their organic survival. But we are not like that. We can save ourselves and the whole tribe. Intuitively we can sense things. Beyond that is inspiration. Many of you may have read the wonderful poem by Wordsworth, Daffodils. Daffodils, one kind of flower which you can buy in some season from the market. Long, large fields of daffodils used to bloom in one season. And Wordsworth went for a walk. He was a very strange man. He could write poems, even on dry things. One poem that we had to study in our university was a poem by him on the London Bridge. I thought, what is there poetic about London Bridge? But what a beautiful poem. You are transported into another world through Wordsworth's words and Wordsworth's eyes and Wordsworth's heart. That Wordsworth came upon a large field area full of daffodils. Out came a wonderful poem, an immortal poem, a short poem. You will forget yourself when you read that. You will be transported to that area, and you can have a glance at the beautiful field full of daffodils. That's called inspiration. Other people also have seen that. I can't remember the saying fully, but somebody said, in the eyes of Shakespeare, the small flower growing on the grass becomes heavenly. He sees it. And he sees heaven in that. He sees a dirty flower. Insignificant one. He sees heaven. That's called inspiration. Inspiration takes us on to the level of realization. In inspiration, we see things which ordinary people cannot see. We say things which ordinary people cannot think. Beyond that is realization. Through the company of the great people, we can come into contact with this ladder of progress. The transformation in us can bring to our experience, within our grasp, the ascension through along this ladder, and can take us to the point of realization, becoming one with what we see. Forget body, mind, intellect, soul, everything. We are now imprisoned in the body. One day, Jesus Christ was walking along the road. A few followers were with him. In the shop nearby was one of his disciples, who was not in his group at that time, Andrew. One disciple of Jesus, Andrew, was sitting in the shop. Seeing Jesus walking along the road, the shopkeeper asked Andrew, "Andrew, you are a great follower, close follower of Jesus Christ. What's the difference between him and us?" Then Andrew said, "We are a body with a soul in it. He is a soul with a body around it." Did you understand? We are a body and a soul happened to be inside it, a secondary. Whereas he is primarily the soul around which a body happened to be. A body, mind, intellect complex we need in order to communicate with material world. The soul can communicate with the material world only with the help of this body, mind, intellect complex. So he needs that to interact with us. But primarily, he is established, or he is the soul. Or primarily we are in the body. Intellectually we understand from Vedanta that we have got a soul which is one with God, or God, the spark of God in the heart. As I tell people, everywhere I say that, we carry God in our hearts. We are walking temples. Remember, we are walking temples. We carry the King of the world, the Creator of this world, the strength of this world in us. Wherever we go, we can't help it. He won't leave us at all, whether we remember Him or not. But those who meditate or try to meditate, just close your eyes against the external world and then go within, and then he is very happy at last. All this time my child has been looking at the external world, now he is trying to see me. And we can see him sitting there with a wonderful smile full of affection. Then we feel that we are really in the company of the holy, of holiness. Pavitrata Swarupini, holiness, not embodiment, but condensed holiness itself. But we are carrying holiness. We are always in the company of the holy. We carry holiness in us, but they forget. Because we don't have the eyes to see. Those who have got eyes to see will see. Look and you will see. Knock and it will be open to you. Ask and it will be given. We don't know how to look. So long as we cannot be aware of the closest company that we have got of holiness, we have to seek outside for holy company. Don't be in a hurry. Our task is to prepare ourselves. And the holy person necessary for our progress we will come upon. Otherwise we will not recognize him. In Australia, they used to say, "Oh Mataji, if Sri Ramakrishna were a bit more good looking, it would have been easier to meditate upon him." I said, if you want to see good looking people, there are Sri Krishna, Sri Rama, all those are very handsome people. Even Jesus was an ordinary person, but they are depicting him as a very handsome person. That's the carpenter's son. How handsome could he be? Just an ordinary Arab. But they dress him up in beautiful flowing robes and things like that, and have a beard and all that they think should be with holiness. They are painting him like that, and they are happy. We don't do that to Sri Ramakrishna. I said holiness is in him, not outside. He is holiness. We are not holy enough to see the holiness. So we see an ordinary villager. So I used to say, when we were children, when beggars came, the elders used to say, "Come on Saturday." Only on Saturdays they would give anything. Otherwise, every day you will have to sit there and give money, rice, all those things. People didn't have time. So come on Saturday. Beggars knew. On Saturday, if you come, you will get lots and lots of things from homes. I said, if Sri Ramakrishna were to come in through the gate, he also would say, "Come on Saturday." So our way of looking at things, he looks like a beggar. Not God. If we have got the eyes to see, we will see a different person. The whole world will change. The whole world will be transformed. And we will become holiness itself. Thank you.